Chapter 9. Way of the Armored Elephant. Looking back, Hanli couldn't help but give a knowing smile. In the half-year that Hanli spent with Zhang Tai, because their personalities matched well with each other, the two had naturally become very close friends. Hanli slowly stood from his cross-legged position and rubbed his calves. After sitting in the cross-legged position and meditating for so long, his legs had become numb, and even some of his bloodstreams felt clogged. After kneading them for some time, his legs returned back to normal. Standing up, Hanli dusted himself in his usual custom before exiting the stone chamber. Turning his head back to look at the stone chamber where he was cultivating, Hanli couldn't help but laugh to himself. The entire chamber was made of solid granite, while the doors were made of a giant piece of chrysotolite. If a normal human wanted to break into this room, he or she would need to spend at least 3 hours hacking at the doors with an enormous axe. 1. In the Seven Mysteries sect, only the sect leader, elders, and division heads were allowed to use this type of silent cultivation chamber. Not even inner disciples were allowed to use them as they pleased. This cultivation chamber was created for those practicing profound cultivation techniques to guard their practice against any external disruption and in order to prevent Qigong deviation. Hanli didn't know what methods Dr. Imo had used, but the sect somehow granted him the usage of his own personal cultivation stone chamber, built into the side of the cliff of God Hand Valley. 2. After the cultivation chamber was built, Dr. Imo had assigned it for Hanli's sole usage. Seeing such a gift, Hanli couldn't help but feel humbled by Dr. Mo's benevolence. Dr. Mo's treatment of Hanli was perhaps too good to be true. Ever since Hanli had become his official apprentice, Dr. Imo had personally dipped into his own supply of herbs for Hanli to consume. Not only that, Dr. Imo also created an unknown medicinal bath for him to soak his body in. Hanli didn't know what types of herbs were being used, but as he watched Doctor carefully refine those herbs, his normally impassive face revealed a hint of reluctance. Even Hanli could figure out that these herbs were extremely valuable. Clearly, these benefits were extremely useful to him, causing Hanli's cultivation speed to increase several-fold. Hanli had recently succeeded in mastering the first layer of the mysterious chant imparted to him by Dr. Imo. During his process of breaking through, his meridians had nearly ruptured several times, and he had suffered from some moderate internal injuries. But thanks to Dr. Mo's expertise in the healing arts, the injuries to his meridians were easily repaired, and with the aid of the medicinal herbs, Hanli did not suffer from any serious, permanent damage. Every time Hanli was even slightly injured, Dr. Imo would become even more worried than Hanli himself. This worry manifested itself the entire time he treated Hanli, making Dr. Imo very tense. It was only when Hanli's injuries began recovering that he let out a sigh of relief. Dr. Mo's concern went far beyond that of a normal relationship between master and disciple, and caused Hanli to feel a little uneasy about the situation. If it weren't for his third uncle or the fact that no one ever walked out from these valleys, Hanli would have thought that Dr. Imo was actually his long-lost relative based on the attention that he had been showing to Immortality3. Walking out of the cultivation chamber, Hanli lazily stretched his body and walked away from the cliff. After he had become an official disciple, Hanli and Zhang Tai moved from their original quarters into their own personal house. As he passed by Zhang Tai's room, Hanli shot a glance inside. As it turns out, Zhang Tai wasn't inside. Hanli thought that he was probably by the Crimson Water Peaks waterfall, cultivating his new martial arts technique. After the examination, Dr. Imo instructed Hanli to continue practicing the oracular chant and refused to teach him any martial arts. However, in an attempt to pacify Hanli, Dr. Imo personally instructed Hanli in the art of healing without holding anything back. Whenever Hanli had a question about medicine, Dr. Imo would answer right away, even going as far as allowing Hanli to look through the various books in Dr. Mo's library to find an answer to his question. As for Zhang Tai, Dr. Imo fulfilled his previous promise and imparted a set of martial arts to him. The martial arts Zhang Tai practiced was extremely peculiar. According to Dr. Imo, it was an extremely obscure branch of martial arts named the Way of the Armored Elephant. Even the name of this particular martial arts was rarely heard of, let alone the existence of practitioners who actually cultivated it. It differed from the martial arts of regular practitioners in Jianghu. Generally, The progression of cultivation for normal martial arts ranged from easy to difficult. As the level increased, so would the difficulty. Thus, the higher the level, the more effort it would take for one to achieve a breakthrough. Zhang Tai's particular martial art style was divided into 9 layers, with the initial 3 layers being the easiest to cultivate, following the same principle as normal martial arts. However, starting from the 4th layer, the difficulty of breaking through was increased to a monstrous level in addition to suffering the excruciating backlash caused by practicing the way of the armored elephant. Many cultivators of this set of martial arts could not bear such excruciating pain and would stop their progression at the 4th level. Not to mention the 5th level nor the 6th level, as the excruciating pain would only increase with each level. 4. After breaking through from the 6th layer into the 7th, there would be no further bottlenecks, and cultivation would be much smoother. The only drawback was that the cultivator would need to suffer from monthly bouts of intense pain. This intimidated many people who desired to cultivate the way of the armored elephant. As such, this particular branch of martial arts was slowly dying out. This martial arts style was very peculiar. When it reached a high enough level, one's strength would become truly astounding. It was said that those who reached the 9th layer had bodies as tough as gemstones. They were impervious to all weapons, even fire and water. Even palm strike, fist techniques, and legendary swords and sabers wouldn't be able to injure them. But what made people most envious was that after cultivating this branch of martial arts, practitioners would gain the tremendous strength of an elephant. After reaching a high enough level, their strength would be limitless. They were capable of catching live wolves and ripping tigers apart, as well as other unparalleled feats. Those who had heard of this style both feared and adored it. Other than the creator of this martial art, there was no other individual who had managed to cultivate it to the 9th layer. Legend has it that the creator of this martial art was born without a sense of pain. That was the reason why he was able to create such a perverse martial art and execute it to its greatest potential. Although Dr. Mo had explained the benefits and consequences in its entirety to Zhang Tai had no concerns about the harm it could bring to his body. He coveted the strength the way of the armored elephant could bring him and promised right away to cultivate in this style of martial arts. Without even looking for another style suitable to him, Zhang Tai had already reached the peak of the 1st layer in 2 months. In order to break through the 1st layer of the way of the armored elephant, Dr. Mo had suggested that every afternoon, Zhang Tai should go to the Crimson Water Peak's waterfall and cultivate under the impact of the surging waters. According to Zhang Tai, this method really did have a godly effect. The difference between the peak of the 1st layer to the 2nd layer was only paper thin, and as long as he worked a little harder, he would break through the bottleneck with relative ease. Chapter 10. Mysterious Bottle. Hanli slowly followed the path from God Hand Valley out of force of habit. His steps automatically carried him towards the Crimson Water Peak. He didn't have anything important to do at the moment, and as such, he followed his normal schedule and went to visit Zhang Tai, who was training at the Crimson Water Peak. There, he knew Zhang Tai would be grimacing in pain while allowing the impact of the waterfall to temper his body, as he cultivated the way of the armored elephant. Not everyone could withstand the torturous pain from cultivating this particular martial art. Even the 1st layer already required one to suffer excruciating pain. To reach the 9th layer, wouldn't it require one to cultivate to the point of insanity, losing their skin in the process? I wonder if Zhang Tai already regrets his decision. The excruciating torture one has to endure to practice the way of the armored elephant is impossible to imagine. Hanli thought as he walked, carelessly kicking the fallen leaves and branches that were blocking his way. Maybe after a few more days, the two of us will go and beg Dr. Mo for another martial arts skill for Zhang Tai, so that he won't need to suffer from such excruciating pain each time he practices. Having absorbed himself in thought, trying to think of methods to allow Zhang Tai to escape from this torturous path of practice, Hanli slowly roused himself to look at his surroundings. Hanli tilted his head as he gazed at the line of trees by his side. Currently, the year was approaching the late stages of autumn. The trees' branches were all naked and devoid of leaves. Piles of sticks and dead leaves layered the small paths. Walking on them felt like walking on cotton, which Hanli found to be extremely comfortable. In that moment, The sounds of weapons clashing drifted over from a nearby mountain peak, as well as the sounds of many loud cheers. After hearing the noises, Hanli glanced in the direction of the mountain peak, annoyed that his good mood had been disturbed. The noise came from disciples of the 100 Forged Division. They were training the disciples selected to join their division in the various arts of weaponry. Every time Hanli saw other sect members gathering and undergoing their training sessions, slight hints of jealousy surfaced in his heart. He wanted to wield a real weapon and demonstrate his skills as well. What a waste. After he officially became a disciple under Dr. Mo, he had been strongly forbidden from practicing such things. Dr. Mo strongly emphasized that Hanli was to devote all of his time to the nameless oracular chant. Therefore, Hanli could only stare with wide and envious eyes. Occasionally, to scratch his itch, he would borrow a few weapons from some of the other sect members he was on good terms with and practice with them. How truly useful was it to cultivate the mysterious chant? Up until now, Hanli had not seen any positive effects of his constant cultivation. Other disciples had already strengthened their body and mastered impressive martial art techniques. If the path of martial arts was compared to a marathon, Hanli was certain that he had remained at the starting point and hadn't advanced in the least. Even Zhang Tai, who had cultivated for 2 months, had some beneficial changes to show for his efforts. His skin and muscles had become tougher, and his level of strength was also noticeably higher than before. However, if Dr. Mo had not accepted Zhang Tai as an unofficial disciple, he would not have passed the unofficial disciple test 2 months ago. If he had not passed the test, then staying on the mountain would be impossible, let alone sending money back home. If Zhang Tai was unable to cultivate another branch of martial arts, his path would be forever sealed. On one hand, Hanli was grumbling about the unfairness of their situation. On the other hand, he was reassuring himself that since he passed Dr. Mo's test, he would not be kicked out of the Seven Mysteries sect. Hanli retracted his gaze from the other sect members, but he continued to think about Dr. Mo's irritating commands. Distracted and in low spirits, he gazed at the 2 lines of trees alongside the road as pangs of dejection struck him. All of a sudden, Hanli sucked in a mouthful of cool air, his facial expression turning ugly. Out of reflex, he squatted down and used both his hands to tightly clamp on the big toe of his right foot, doubling over in the grass. A sudden, painful flare-up had caught Hanli unaware. His face became a pale white as waves of fiery pain assailed his right foot. Evidently, Hanli had accidentally kicked against an extremely hard object hidden in the piles of leaves. Hanli arched his body and used both of his hands to wrap around his foot. After he lowered his head and removed his shoes, he began to blow heavily on his injured toe. While his brain flooded with pain, he was worried that his swollen toe might have been injured to an extent that would impact his day-to-day activities. After a long moment, Hanli craned his neck and peered downwards to that pile of leaves, trying to find the ungodly, dastardly stone that caused him to be injured. Haphazardly lying about, the fallen leaves were all the same reddish-yellow color. They obscured him from finding the target he sought. Hanli wrinkled his forehead and surveyed the ground before finding a slightly long and thick tree branch. Holding the branch, he stood up carefully. Unwilling to give up, Hanli used the branch in his hands and continued to probe piles of leaves. He spotted an object the size of a fist. Hanli paused momentarily and considered the object in front of him. The culprit, the sinful object that caused injury to his great self, actually had the shape of an elongated bottle. The surface of it was stained with mud, and its original color was impossible to discern. Overall, it looked extremely commonplace. Initially, Hanli thought that this was an ordinary little bottle, but after picking it up he found that the bottle was extraordinarily heavy, its weight vastly different from that of a normal porcelain bottle. Could this bottle be made of gold? No wonder it caused so much pain when he kicked it. But bottles made of gold were rarely seen. Made of gold? Hanli's interest in this bottle peaked as he temporarily forgot about the waves of pain arising from his toe. As Hanli wiped off the excess layer of mud, the original color of the bottle began to unveil itself. The bottle emanated a shiny green glow, and there were intricate dark green leaf patterns engraved on its surface. At the head of the bottle, there was a bottle cap that tightly sealed the mouth of the bottle. Could the interior be hiding something precious? Hanley placed the bottle close to his ear and gently shook the bottle, but he didn't feel any movements from the inside of it. Unwilling to give up, Hanley placed his hands on the cap of the bottle and tried to pry it open. However, no matter how hard he tried, it was to no avail. Curiosity was burning in his heart, and just when he was about to use another method to open it, the pain from his foot suddenly flared up again. Damn! He had forgotten that he had injured his right toe after kicking the bottle. Looking at his injury, it seemed that he wouldn't be visiting Zhang Tai today. Hanley decided to return to his residence and apply some medicine on his toe before taking his time to figure out the secrets of the mysterious bottle he was holding. In order to keep the bottle from being spotted by others, Hanley stashed it inside his robes regardless of how dirty it was. Turning back, he limped step by step back to his home. Chapter 11. Difficult to open bottle. Hanley didn't meet many people on the way back except for a few senior disciples who were curious at why Hanley was limping his way back. But because he didn't say anything, they didn't pay much attention to him. As he returned back to his room, the pain in his toe got increasingly unbearable. Hanley sat on his bed and took off his shoes to examine his injury. The swelling was incredible. His right toe had an impressive bulge on it, while the cuticle on his toe turned blood red and resembled a big chili. Hanley quickly took out a bottle of herbs from beneath his pillow. Concocted meticulously by Dr. Mo, this medicine could treat bruising, swelling, and bleeding at an astonishing degree. Dr. Mo didn't easily give away medicine of this caliber. It was originally meant for Zhang Tai, who would inevitably suffer an injury while practicing the way of the armored elephant, and Hanley didn't think that he would be the first to use the medicine. Opening the medicinal bottle, a strong herbal fragrance filled the room. He applied a small amount on his injury and immediately felt a relaxing sensation. Just as Dr. Mo had said, it had an immediate effect. Dr. Mo's medicine truly was amazing. Hanley took a clean cloth and wrapped up his foot before putting his shoes back on. Excellent. The pain was slowly subsiding. He began to take small steps, as if testing his pain threshold, nodding in satisfaction as he felt that moving was easier than before. Now, it was time to solve the enigma posed by the mysterious bottle that had caused such an injury to him. Hanley took out the bottle from his robes and wiped it clean to restore its natural luster. This bottle wasn't all that big, and a single hand could wrap around the entire length of its neck. It was actually smaller than the bottle that contained Dr. Mo's medicine. The bottle had a shiny green luster and was engraved with dark green leaf patterns that seemed almost alive. When Hanley felt the contours of the designs on the surface of the bottle, it was almost as if there were actual leaves embedded onto the bottle itself. Weighing the bottle in his hand, Hanley had no idea what type of metal was used to make it, or if it was even porcelain. The bottle didn't have a cold, metallic feeling to it, nor did it have the gloss of porcelain. Hanley had observed the bottle for a good while, and the only thing he could be certain of was that he didn't know what material was used to make it. The shade of green seemed intrinsically part of the material itself, not a color that was added after it was made. Seeing how tightly the bottle was sealed, Hanley naturally became curious. Eyeing the bottle, he strongly desired to see whether or not there was something inside. Once more using his strength, he tried to pry open the cap of the bottle. 1 try, 2 tries, 3 tries. It was as if the cap of the bottle was fused into the neck. It was almost as if it was refusing to budge. Hanley was astounded. Back when he first picked up the bottle, due to waves of pain assailing him, he couldn't use his full strength to open it and didn't realize how stubborn the bottle was. But now that Hanley had finished tending to his foot and was using his full strength, he was surprised that he still couldn't pry the bottle open. Hanley tried to twist the lid once more until his arms began to ache, but there was still no success, so he had no choice but to stop. He stretched and loosened his arms, moving his wrist about. Just now, he had expended a large amount of energy to open the bottle, and his efforts had strained his wrist. Holding the bottle under his eye, he began to inspect it even closer. Unfortunately, there was no secret mechanism under the lid that would allow him to easily open it. This made Hanley frustrated. He wasn't able to open the bottle, so how would he know if there was something inside or not? If it was sealed up this tightly, then there was definitely something precious inside. Hanley held the bottle tightly in his hand, looking at it with a vacant look. In the end, he had decided that he would let Zhang Tai, who was many times stronger than him, give it a try and see if he could open it. He knew that the current Zhang Tai could easily lift over 10 buckets of water up and down the mountains as if it was nothing. These days, it was Zhang Tai who refilled the water in the huge water tank every day. After making this decision, Hanli headed towards Zhang Tai's place, hoping that he would return soon. Waiting for someone was truly unpleasant. Hanli felt that time was passing by extremely slowly. Finally, after waiting for a long time, a creaking sound was heard as Zhang Tai pushed open the door. Looking up, Hanli saw that Zhang Tai was wearing only a thin piece of clothing. His entire body was steaming as he perspired freely. Hanli knew that this was the result of his cultivation, so he didn't find it strange. Seeing as Hanli was already in his house waiting for him, Zhang Tai was stunned. But before Zhang Tai could say anything, Hanli impatiently thrust the bottle towards him. "Brother Zhang, please lend me your assistance and help me open this bottle. Where did you find this? It looks rather nice." Zhang Tai remarked as he took the bottle. Z. 1. This bottle is so tightly sealed. It's so hard to pry it open. What was used to make this? Zhang Tai cut straight to the chase. He wasn't able to open the bottle either. "Gah, I can't do it. This bottle won't open. Why don't you find a senior disciple to help you?" Zhang Tai shook his head apologetically and handed the bottle back to Hanli along with the suggestion. "Even you can't open this?" Hanli was getting more anxious and couldn't help but pace around the room. What happened to your leg?" Zhang Tai inquired as he noticed Hanli's foot. "It's nothing. I kicked a rock on the road." Hanli didn't know why, but he didn't want to tell Zhang Tai about his surprise encounter with the bottle just yet. Right now, he wanted to keep the bottle his own personal secret. Hanli was feeling very disappointed in his heart. He didn't want to sit around and chat with Zhang Tai at the moment, and after briefly asking about how his cultivation was progressing, Hanli immediately left the room and returned back to his own place to think of a way to resolve his personal problem. Returning back to his room, Hanli put the bottle on the table and stared intensely at it. At the same time, his mind was trying to think of solutions to open the mysterious bottle. Chapter 12. Breaking the Bottle. Pung. Hanli tightly grasped the bottle with his hands, and with anger in his eyes, used his entire strength to smash the bottle against the table. "If I can't use my own body's strength, then I shall use other means to break it open," decided Hanli after thinking of numerous ways to open the vexing bottle. Hanli had long since figured out that using brute strength and violence was not a solution. This type of method, although simplistic and crude, was usually the most effective. But the moment he thought of that beautiful bottle with its mysterious and intricate designs being smashed into smithereens, Hanli could feel a dull ache in his heart, pulling him back, causing him to be extremely unwilling to let go of such a beautiful treasure. If there were any other methods to open the mysterious bottle, Hanli would choose those instead of using brute force. If he asked the other senior disciples for help, they might be able to open it, but Hanli had unknowingly started to treat the mysterious bottle as a treasured item and was extremely reluctant to let others know of its existence. The current Hanli was completely captivated by the mysterious bottle. Although he knew that it might just be an empty bottle, he was still willing to bet that the bottle was protecting something precious. The more he was unable to open the bottle, the more his curiosity grew. If he couldn't solve the mystery inside the bottle, then he would never be able to sleep well at night. After he decided on his next course of action, Hanli stealthily sneaked into a tool shed, selected a small iron hammer from the multitude of tools lying about there, and brought the hammer back to his residence. 1. Back in his house, Hanli pried half a brick from a corner in his room and placed the bottle on top of the brick. Hanli raised the hammer with his right hand and swiftly smashed down onto the bottle's body. Pung. Afraid of using too much strength and accidentally smashing whatever was inside, Hanli used only a fraction of his strength in order to test the bottle's hardness. Only after inspecting the bottle and finding that it was undamaged did Hanli relax. He started increasing the amount of strength he used in each strike. Pung. 50% strength. Pung. 70% strength. Pung. 100% strength. Pung. 120% strength. Hanli exerted more and more of his strength into each hammer blow. As the motions of his arms got more and more frantic, the speed of the blows grew faster and faster. Even after he had cracked the brick underneath, the bottle laid there innocently without a single scratch on its surface. Hanley was dumbstruck, unable to comprehend the hardness of the bottle. Using his hands to feel its surface, there were no traces of damage. That glossy green surface remained unblemished without any signs of Hanley's furious attempts. This was completely beyond Hanley's expectations. Hanley was absolutely certain now that this bottle was made from an extraordinary material. There was a great possibility that this item was lost by someone of a high status. The owner may have already sent people to comb the mountainside in search for this mysterious object. If Hanley wanted to keep it, he had to be sure to hide it in an extremely secretive location and not let others know of its existence. In his heart, Hanley followed the philosophy of finders, keepers, losers, weepers. As long as one did not obtain the item by stealing or robbing, to Hanley, the item obtained was his by right. If it was some ordinary item, Hanley might have been willing to return it back to the owner. But this mysterious bottle? Not a chance. Looking at the bottle, he surmised that this item had most likely been misplaced by either some rich kid from a big family or someone with a high status. Sadly, Hanley did not have any good impression of people from both of these categories. Since childhood, Hanley was from an extremely poor family. Despite working very hard and living like dogs, they were often unable to afford to have a full meal. In the Seven Mysteries sect, there were two types of people. The first type were those who threw their money about, wasting it on decadent luxury. They treated money as if it were water, spending it freely and without concern. Every time Hanley saw this, an uncomfortable feeling of rage would rise in his heart. The second type of people were those who looked down on the disciples who were born in rural villages. They would often abuse the less fortunate with scathing words and malicious actions. If there so happened to be any conflict between them and the villagers, however small the conflict was, the second type of person would usually form into groups and beat up the poorer kids. Hanley himself had his fair share of abuse. He had been beaten up by the rich kids until his face was swollen and he was unable to get up from bed, and had to rest for a few weeks in order to fully recover. As for those within the sect that possessed both money and status, Hanley also did not have good impressions of them. A good example was Protector Wong. Despite accepting his third uncle's bribes, Protector Wong did nothing to aid Hanley when he was taking the test. Instead, Protector Wong had been biased towards Wu Yin. Despite the fact that Hanley did not have the chance to see many of the grand figures residing in the sect, their image had long been tarnished by the actions of Protector Wong. Whenever these two types of people lost their belongings, Hanley had no intentions of returning the items. He would even want to prank them by hiding the items in obscure locations. After thinking of this, Hanley decided to remove the pouch which always hung upon his neck. His mother had personally sewn the pouch out of water-resistant leather, and inside the pouch was a good luck charm made from the tooth of a wild boar. His mother hoped this would protect him from danger and illnesses. Hanley opened his pouch and hid the mysterious bottle alongside his good luck charm. He then swiftly sealed the pouch and placed it around his neck. After doing so, he surveyed his surroundings. Luckily, there was no one who had seen him or the mysterious bottle. After taking so many precautions, Hanley felt more secure and threw away all of his concerns that the owner would discover the object and take it from him. Hanley stealthily returned the hammer to the tool shed and casually walked back to Godhand Valley. As he limped back to his residence, night had fallen